Hey everyone! I've been finding myself brewing a lot lately, now that the Final Fantasy set is out, and though a lot of the commanders and set archetypes are interesting, to me the most inspiring cards in the whole set were the equipment. As someone who runs two separate Voltron decks with some regularity, there's just something satisfying about suiting up a creature, usually a commander, and just trying to beat face with them. As far as strategy and deck composition go, Voltron is an incredibly simple and straightforward archetype. Load up on equipment and or auras, maybe some protective spells, and you've got a deck. And the coolest part is that pretty much any legendary creature can be the head of a Voltron deck. However, with this in mind, there's some things every Voltron deck needs to consider while deck building. Let's start with the commander. While it's absolutely true that any legendary creature can be a Voltron commander, not all commanders are built equal, and some require extra steps to even be able to swing, like Opali or the Theros gods. When it comes to abilities, the best choices, in my opinion, tend to fit in one of two categories: offensive and defensive. Offensive keywords are things like haste, first strike, double strike, trample, flying, death touch, menace, and anything else that gives your commander an edge in combat. Defensive keywords, on the other hand, are things like indestructible, protection, hexproof, ward, and shroud. These protect your commander from your opponent's removal, making them much harder to deal with directly. And a quick note on shroud: you won't be able to target your commander, so traditional Voltron strategies don't work normally for them. So you'll have to use Anthem style effects to buff your commander. Personally, as far as abilities go, I tend to gravitate towards the more aggressive ones, like Karlach Fury of Avernus's extra combat ability, and Cady Bree of Mithril Hall's ability to grow every combat, while also having good defensive capabilities with First Strike, Reach, and the ability to deal damage to an attacking or blocking creature by removing her counters. So, what about commanders that don't have abilities? Can they be good Voltron commanders? Well, the thing to consider there is, how good are their stats in relation to their mana cost? So basically, unless your vanilla legendary comes from Legends, it's probably okay to build as a Voltron commander. I mean, Isamaru's been a popular choice for Voltron commander for years. So, now that we've decided on our commander, the next thing to consider is what we're going to use to make them deal the most damage possible. For the most part, this is entirely up to preference, and other than a few legendary creatures, there's no right or wrong way to pick what's going to buff your commander. For my personal decks, Cady Bree is a dedicated equipment deck with like two synergistic non-aura enchantments. And my Karlach deck has a blend of equipment and auras that protect her or help her kill an opponent much faster than normal by making her evasive or giving her infect, which my pods are okay with, I promise. So, we've got our commander suited up and ready for a beatdown. But now we're in danger of getting beat down ourselves. So what do we do to prepare for the inevitable crackback? Personally, I tend to run lots of synergy creatures that double as blockers when I need them to, and a lot of equipment I run tend to also make tokens to act as jump blockers, some of which include cards like Scepter of Celebration, which makes citizen tokens, and Living Weapon, which makes 0/0 germs that the equipment is then attached to, effectively making some of my equipment jump blockers. However, I've found that the best way to defend yourself as the Voltron player is to embrace a little Pillow Fort sub-theme, especially if you're in a deck that has a lot of white or blue and cares about enchantments. Also, if you're running a commander with indestructible or is immune to damage like Chomano Revolutionary, you should absolutely be running Pariah if it's in your colors, and Pariah's Shield. The last thing to consider for any Voltron deck, and any strategy really, is to really think about what would throw a wrench in your plans. Most Voltron decks are especially weak to cards like Meekstone, Ensnaring Bridge, various edicts, and No Mercy. Most colors offer at least some way to deal with these effects, especially white and green, which easily have the most ways of dealing with unwanted artifacts and enchantments. Even red has Chaos Warp and Wild Magic Surge to deal with enchantments at the cost of potentially giving the opponent something nice. Black, I believe, struggles the most since it doesn't have any way to deal with artifacts other than Gate to Phyrexia, and that card is on the reserve list at $60, so it's not very feasible to get for most players. When all else fails, colorless cards like Unstable Obelisk, Meteor Golem, and Introduction to Annihilation are probably Black's best bet at removing artifacts. So if you're opting to go for a mono black commander for your Voltron deck, I can't recommend bringing Cryptghast and Arcana Revenant enough since these spells are kinda mana intensive. Well, those are my thoughts on Voltron as an archetype. Who's your favorite Voltron commander? Do you have a favorite aura or equipment? I'd love to hear about it in the comments, and I hope to see you soon in the next one.